The War of 1812. April 1814. The war thus far. They say April is the cruelest month. If that is so, an April during wartime must be among the cruelest Aprils of all. Strangely enough, in this April 1814, all the action of the War of 1812, all the action in the War of 1812, takes place at sea, or at least on the water. Perhaps all the armies are worn out. In April, the British sloop Borer, B-O-R-E-R, under the command of Captain Richard Coote, anchors off Saybrook Bar, at the mouth of the Connecticut River on a search and destroy mission. On April 8th, 136 British sailors and Marines, guided by an American turncoat, head upstream in 5 boats armed with swivel guns and carronades to burn the shipping town of Pettipaug or Pettipaug, now known as Essex, Connecticut, and a known nest of privateers, privately owned warships that had been preying on the British. Arriving in force at 4 a.m., the invaders will burn 26 ships with a value of $200,000, which, according to the site CTGENWEB, CTGenweb, was, quote, the greatest financial loss suffered by the American side during the War of 1812, end of quote. The British will make the locals an offer they can't refuse. They will spare the town if the residents keep out of their way. At 11 a.m., they depart with booty, which includes a large quantity of West Indian rum, plus the brig Anaconda and the sloop Eagle, both privateers, as prizes. But the tide and contrary winds slow their escape and allows an increasing number of Americans to harass them from shore. Captain Coote is politely asked to surrender, but politely declines. But before his men can reach the safety of the Borer, he is forced to burn the 2 privateers and loses 2 men killed and 2 wounded. But I bet they kept the rum. April the 20th, which is Hitler's birthday, by the way, sees the end of the frolics of the sloop USS Frolic, which was under Commander Joseph Bainbridge, younger brother of the more famous American sailor William Bainbridge. Frolic had been frolicking between Florida and Cuba when it came to the attention of 2 British ships, the 36-gun frigate HMS Orpheus and the 12-gun schooner HMS Shelburne. And at 7 a.m., the British ships gave chase. Knowing he couldn't outgun them, Bainbridge attempts to outrun them to Cuba, but the British ships are too fast. The Americans cut away their starboard anchor and toss their portside guns and even small arms overboard in an attempt to lighten the ship, all to no avail. By 2 p.m., the race is over, and the captured Frolic will spend the next 5 years in Royal Navy service as HMS Florida. This cruel month ends with the capture of the British brig Epervier, or Epervier. Now, I know I'm mispronouncing that, and since apparently it means sparrowhawk in English, I will now refer to the boat as the Sparrowhawk. This cruel month ends with the capture of the British brig Sparrowhawk, Commander Richard Wales, by the American ship Peacock. A Sparrowhawk versus a Peacock. By the American ship Peacock, Master Commandant Lewis Warrington, off the coast of Florida. Captain Wales is escorting a convoy when the Peacock approaches, and he takes immediate action to put his vessel between the American ship and his charges. Action begins at 10 a.m. and lasts for 40 minutes until Wales is forced to surrender. The British ship has 45 holes in her hull and 5 feet of water in her hold, while damage to the Peacock is largely confined to her rigging. The British lose 8 dead and 15 injured, some 20% of her crew, while the Americans suffer only 2 men slightly wounded. But, before the Peacock can strut, she and her prize are spotted off the coast of Amelia Island, Spanish East Florida, by 2 enemy vessels. Warrington sends the Sparrowhawk to St. Mary's, Georgia, while he led the attackers south to draw them away from his prize. In the end, the Peacock and the Sparrowhawk will both meet up safely at Savannah. The Epervier, or Epervier, or Sparrowhawk, was carrying $118,000 in coin. Wow. I hope the crew of the Peacock saw some of that. But, in addition to these conflicts at sea, other important events are taking place off-stage. On April the 14th, the U.S. repeals both the Embargo Act and the Non-Importation Act. A detailed explanation of these measures is above my pay grade, but simply put, they were economic attempts by the United States to force Britain to stop impressing her seamen and respect her neutrality. The Non-Importation Act, originally passed in April 1806, forbid the import of some British goods, such as paper, nails, spikes, hats, and even beer, ale, and porter. Yikes! No porter? While the Embargo Act of 1807 was, according to Wikipedia, enacted against general trade with all foreign countries and was intended to pressure Napoleonic France as much as Great Britain. Both acts were intended to prevent war, but failed miserably, so their repeal now may be regarded as largely meaningless. Of greater import is the abdication of Napoleon on April the 11th, which is very, very, very bad news for the U.S., as Britain will now be able to send ships and battle-hardened troops to North America, which may swing the tide of war in England's favor. Maybe. I mean, who knows? Maybe the British might even burn Washington, D.C.? Stay tuned. My primary source for today's video is D.R. Westhouse's sadly unpublished The War of 1812, A Chronology of the Military Actions 1812 to 1815. All other sources, plus picture and music credits, are listed in the description. If this is your first visit to 1812 channel, my name is Warren and I'm your host. I'm not a historian, nor am I an expert on the War of 1812. Instead, I'm a student wishing to learn about the conflict. Each month for the roughly 3 years of the war, I will outline the major events. I will also review a book on the war. Did I miss anything? Any errors? And I bet there's at least one. Then let me know in the comments below. This channel will only be fun if you guys comment on these videos and correct me when I'm mistaken. When the barrage lifts, cheers.